The injuries are piling up with this Canadian team. Marsch was asked about it, and he named off a laundry list of guys that are dealing with injuries. Since we last recorded, Alfie Jones had ankle surgery and will be out for around 2 months. Caught us all off guard when he posted himself in a hospital bed on his Instagram story. Theo Bair also hurt his ankle and will be out for a similar timeline, around 2 months. Jacob Schaffelberg, of course, had groin surgery and will be out for a few months. And Theo Corbiano, albeit not in this picture, unavailable for injury as well. For the most part, the injuries aren't too serious and they're not going to necessarily impact the World Cup yet. But what impact do injuries have on Marsch's World Cup preparations? Because this is, again, guys that are not going to be available for March, most likely. And then you don't know the status of guys that are trending towards the right direction, like Moise Bombito, Derek Cornelius. Alphonso Davies has missed some time with illness after coming back from injury. It's getting a little bit worrying here for Canadian players and their injury status, Brendan.
Yeah, it is. I think there's tiers, though, right? I mean, Jonathan David, Moise Bombito, Tejan Buchanan, those are guys who, if they recover from injuries, Tejan not being one who's injured at the moment, nor is Jonathan David, but there's a tier of guys that if they recover from those injuries and they're in club form, Jesse Marsch feels fine having not seen them for months. I do think that someone like Alfie Jones, who he simply hasn't seen enough of, is someone who is in danger of perhaps not challenging for a place or not being as high, on the depth chart as he would have been once the World Cup starts, and really has a lot of work to do and a lot to show in June in order to earn some minutes in what is hopefully a far longer World Cup tournament than 2022 was for Canada, and more games in which Alfie Jones is someone who could be a part of. So I think it's tiered. But the fact that, we're still 5 months out, you're hoping for a full recovery from Alphonso Davies, which we haven't seen yet. You're hoping that this good run of form that Jonathan David has found in this last week and a half continues and only grows. So there's a lot that he's watching, but for the moment, I think you just hope that the players who have come through and are in line to be ready for March or even April. And I would put Alistair Johnston in that same category as Moise Bombito. I think the frustrating thing for Marsch in relation to Alistair Johnston is that he won't have that March to experiment with using some of the other players along with Alistair Johnston to see where it stacks, because I think we all expect Alistair Johnston should walk back into that right back position, and he's probably deserving of it. But if this was a normal stretch where he was available for 6 months and in training competing against those guys that Marsch can watch, then maybe that would be different. So I think that's probably a bit of a headache for him, but there could be far worse situations, and we're all hoping that come the end of the season, April and May, when these teams like Bayern Munich and Juventus are competing, and Villarreal for titles and trophies, that all those Canadian top end guys stay healthy.
It's case by case, right? Because Alphonso Davies, we have to remember, of course, has been out for so long, but Davies is one of those guys where doesn't matter what state he's in, he's healthy, he's in the team. Now Canada's at a point where is that same debate happening with Alistair Johnston, right? Like 100% Alistair Johnston when he's fully fit. Yeah, he's the guy at right back. But the reality is, if he doesn't make the March window, which is a possibility, we still don't know fully how his hamstring recovery is going to go. I think estimates have him right back around March. So even if he comes back, he probably wouldn't be fit for more than 30 minutes a game anyways. Like what does Marsch do in terms of, because if he doesn't play much in March, that means by the time you come to June, because Johnson didn't feature at all in the fall, we have to remember, right? So that means all we would have seen him since is a Gold Cup where he only played a few games because he was unable to join at the start. That's a big question mark. For Moise Bombito, we're confident he can slot back in, but it's hilarious to think that a Moise Bombito, Luc de Fougerolles pairing, which isn't outrageous to have happen at a World Cup. I think that could very well happen if there's a yellow card or suspension. That could be the first time it happens, is at a World Cup game. And ideally, you would have liked at least 30 to 60 minutes of Bombito and de Fougerolles just to get used to each other's attendance. Actually, I lied. They played together against Uruguay at Copa America, but that was 2 years ago. I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have. So I think for Marsch, it just leaves you in this position because especially come this next window, he's going to have to weigh what's best for the team now and how he needs to prepare while balancing, okay, how do I get Johnston used to playing with an Alfie Jones? Because he would have never have seen a Jones, of course, with Jones coming in. How do you get used to these certain partnerships that just physically haven't been able to develop because Davies, Johnson, Bombito have missed so much time, and now you add Jones and all this to the mix. So I think it definitely affects it, because I think in his ideal world, Marsch is coming into these next 2 games and next 4 games, and that lineup is settled. Like, we're really starting to see the A team with guys getting an option to on the fringes. Whereas now I think we're going to see some guys elevated into bigger roles. There's benefits to both. I think by the time the World Cup comes around, what's nice is no matter what injuries, what suspensions are thrown at Canada, I think this team will be able to handle it better than most teams in their position would. But it is worth noting how unusual it is for a team in a World Cup year. Like, I'm looking at other teams, they're very settled, and that can have it also its own advantages.
And when you look at the Canadian injured players as well, whose stock do you think is being impacted the most by these injuries? For me, it has to be Theo Bair, because now he's not going to have that chance to prove himself in March, where he potentially could have gotten some of those auditions. And the June camp is going to be very much trying to solidify that World Cup starting lineup, because I think the moment we see that June roster, it's not going to be very different from what we see from the final World Cup roster, Brennan.
Yeah, Theo Bair is definitely a big shout. I think that any of those players that are kind of on the fringe, as I say, and Daniel Jeppesen hasn't been fully healthy either. I would say any of his injuries, any new ones that pop up would be of concern. But I think probably Alfie Jones is someone that we thought not only has just shown up and may challenge for a roster spot, but we're talking about challenging potentially for a starting spot and to be third on the depth chart. I think that's probably someone that this timing has hurt the most, because to Alex's point, you not only do you want to see how he plays in that role, you want the opportunity for other players to get familiar playing with him, and you've lost that, and you don't have that. So to do that on the fly and to do that, at a World Cup against opposition that has a bit more chemistry and opposition that's a bit more settled, albeit of course Italy, Qatar, Switzerland will all be dealing with some injuries themselves, I'm sure, at that point, but those are teams that maybe are a little more settled in their roster at this point, and you wouldn't want to be experimenting and learning on the fly like that with new key pieces. So for me, I think Alfie Jones is probably the one who's most upset in the weight room, cursing at the mirror as he's going through his rehab and recovery.
That's interesting. I like that point. For Jones and Cornelius, though, because I'll lump Cornelius in, you kind of know the center back hierarchy at the same time. Like, I think Jones missed out an opportunity to start, but he'll still be on the team and he'll probably play in some form. So I don't think that changes much. Cornelius, I think he's going to be starting when healthy. I like the Bair shout from Ben, just because there's so much going on at striker that anytime you disappear for a bit, it just opens up the door for someone to step up and take your place. But I think the big one is probably Jacob Schaffelberg, just because there's a time 2 years ago where you're looking at this 2026 World Cup and you're starting to pencil him in as a starter. And I think now in the last year with Ali Ahmed's emergence, Tajon Buchanan returning to form, even guys like Liam Miller getting back in the picture, Jade Nelson, it's gone from penciling him in to start to, will there be room for him in the 26? I still think a Jacob Schaffelberg at his best, at his healthiest, cracks the 26, but again, an extended absence, it opens the door for some other wingers to step up, and all of a sudden that spot's a little more in peril. So I think Schaffelberg's someone that will really hurt out if he misses that March window, because I think even just for him with Schaffelberg, like we've said, what's nice with him is he can give you a good 15 off the bench, like 15. Like, I'm not even talking a 30. He gives you a good 15 off the bench, and there's not a lot of guys you can say give you a guaranteed 15 every time. But with Schaffelberg, we haven't been able to see that in a while due to a multitude of factors. So I think he's one to really look at. And I will just throw out Johnston, because like you said, Brendan, 2 years ago, Johnston, you're not even thinking about. With Johnston, the fact that in his absence, guys have played so well in Nico Seeger and Richie Larea, that's what makes things complicated. Because with Davies, for example, Larea has played really well at left back, but the reality is you don't have a natural left back like Davies. We've seen that with other guys being injured, like Bombito gone. There's no Bombito that's stepped up since that even makes you that even gives me a hint of hesitancy about Bombito's inclusion. With Johnson, Seeger, and Larea have been so well that it has given me hesitancy. All that to say, 2 years ago, when you're talking about this next World Cup cycle, you're like, Johnson's going to go to the 2026 World Cup, play every minute of every game. I don't think that's the case anymore. So in a sense, his stock has been hurt a bit in that regard by his injury.